Hey guys, Jungle Explorer here, and today I'm going to be showing you this dual lens 4K camera, trail camera from the Zimoce company. This was sent to me by the Zimoce company to do this review, so that's what I'm going to do. This is the first 4K dual lens camera I've ever tested, so I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the box and show this little unit to you. Okay, so here's the little camera. It's pretty cool looking. You know, it's got a cool design to it, real 3D-ish. You know, kind of wicked little window there for the LEDs and stuff like that. Looks pretty cool. It's pretty standard design. Got your tripod on the bottom, your tripod screw. Got a little external power port right here. The back is a little unique. It's got this kind of rounded back thing to it for like a double strap or something. That's kind of weird. I mean, it seems like that would rock some, but anyways, let's go ahead and open it up. This has got the side sensors on it here. Inside, pretty standard, pretty basic design. Okay, got your battery compartment here. It's got the micro SD card in the bottom, so that's kind of a downer. But pretty basic design, nothing real special to write home about. Just the front of it's kind of different, but the main factor here is this dual lens 4K capability. I'm really excited to try that out. So I'm going to load this up with some batteries, going to stick it out in the field for a few weeks, and then come back and show you what this camera has done. All right, guys, so hold on because I'll be right back. Okay, guys, so we're back, and I just pulled this camera out of the field and ran all the tests, pulled the card, looked at all the images, did all the calculations. You know how I like to do videos on trail cameras, do all the specs and everything. So I'm going to start off with all the technical data. If that's boring to you and all you want to see is the cool images from this dual lens camera, jump right down to the little bar at the bottom of the video player on YouTube, and there's a chapter list down there. Go to the samples and you can see those. So now comes the boring stuff, but the interesting stuff. Okay, so let's talk about the technical results from the test. So number one, put the camera in the field for 21 days. Okay, I put brand new set of batteries. Every battery measured 1.61 volts when it went into the camera. After 21 days, the batteries came out measuring 1.46 volts. Okay, now you're like, well, that's a lot of droppage. Well, not in this case. Actually, this camera performed very efficiently, and you're going to find out why. Why? Because in that 21 days, the camera took 1,364 images. Okay? Now remember, this is a dual lens 4K camera, and I had it set everything to maximum. Everything 4K video, 20 megapixel. Okay, I had it set to take one 10-second 4K video and 3 20 megapixel pictures every time it was activated. Okay? So the total images that it captured in the 21 days was 1,023. The total videos that it captured in the 21 days was 341. The total data size on the card was 25.5 gigabytes, okay? So if I'd have left it out there a month, it would have maxed out this card for sure, all right? Now, image size. The image size on this was 4.8 megabytes per image on average, okay? Video size. Now, video size, I set it in the field at 4K, and the 4K video size was 7.7 megabytes per second of video, okay? And that would have been over 70 megabytes, 70 to 80 megabytes per each 10-second video, okay? Now, this camera has a lot of other video resolutions. I didn't use them in the field, but I did some post-testing, samples with them just to give you kind of idea of the data size of the different resolutions. Okay, so it also has a 2K setting, and if you set it to 2K setting, the actual data size of each file is 8.2 megabytes per second of 2K video. And you're like, wait a second, I thought you said that 4K was 7.7 megabytes. You're saying 2K is greater? Well, the reason why is because the 4K video in this is only 10 frames per second, okay? 10 frames per second. So it's really clear video, but if there's any motion, it's going to be choppy, okay? The 2K resolution gives you 20 frames per second, double the amount of frames, so more data. Okay? All right, now it also has 1080p, so if I set it at the 1080p setting, it's 7.2 megabytes per second of video file. And you're like, whoa, wait a second, that's almost as big as 2K. Well, yeah, but at 1080p, it shoots 30 frames per second, okay? So just a lot more frames, and that adds data. It has a 720p setting, and at that setting, you get 5.7 megabytes per second at 30 frames per second. And it also has a 720p at 60 frames per second, in which case you would get 7.1 megabytes per second of video on that, okay? All right, now, those are all the technical specs for how the camera performed in the field. Let's jump right to the samples and let's talk about them. Okay, first up, we've got the images. So I'm going to throw an image montage up here for you and just let you look at those. So, boom. Okay guys, so those are some pretty sharp images that came out of this camera, so I was quite impressed with how well it did. Especially the daytime images were just really, really good, really sharp compared to all the other trail cameras that I've done. Now this is the first dual lens 4K camera that I've actually tested, so I was impressed with the quality of the images in comparison to the 1080p cameras that I have been testing. All right, so that was good. Both daytime, nighttime images seemed really good. The only the only time this camera seemed to struggle was very late afternoon, low light images. For some, the infrared lights just needed to be turned on because the light was low enough to need them, but they didn't turn on. So the images taken in about a 20-minute time frame seemed to be really grainy. So I'll show you a couple examples here. Okay, see, so those are kind of grainy, and the problem there is that no camera can perform in darkness without a flash. That's why you have a flash. And on these cameras, they have the infrared light. So the firmware needs to be updated on this to tell the IR lights to turn on a little bit earlier, because those images would have turned out pretty good if the infrared lights would have been turned on. The reason they turned out grainy wasn't because the camera's bad. Obviously, it takes great pictures in the daytime when there's light. Just it needed some assistance from the infrared lights, and it didn't turn on. Okay, now nighttime images were really, really good compared to a lot of the HD cameras that I've tested. The nighttime images were really good. The range is about 40 feet. You can see what's going on about 40 feet. After that, you can tell there's animals back there and what they might be, but that's about the where you're going to see a clear image of the animals, about the limit of 40 feet. I apologize. I got some bad allergies going on. My nose is stopped up, so if I sound a little weird, that's why. Okay, so all right, so I have no complaints about the images on this. Let's go to video. So here is a video montage for you. All right, so the daytime video on this was very good. The clarity and the sharpness of the video on this was superior to any other camera that I've ever tested. Okay, now again, it's 4K and it's at 10 frames per second, so the videos are choppy. So if an animal's walking like this across the field, it's not going to be smooth because it's only 10 frames per second. It's going to like chop, 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 chop. Okay, so you're not going to get that smooth motion when you're only shooting 10 frames per second, but most animals aren't walking, they're just standing there, and those images are quite clear. Now, you may be saying, well, that doesn't look like 4K to me. Well, no, it is not National Geographic 4K quality, guys. All right, they're using $100,000 cameras. Even the camera that I'm using right here, which is about a $2,000 camera, which I'm filming this video with, is going to shoot some amazing 4K footage. That is not the quality that I'm talking about. In fact, except for the fact that they say it's 4K, I'm just going to tell you right here, I don't care what it says. What I want is to compare it to what I've done before. And I can tell you that the video out of this camera is clearer and sharper in the daytime than pretty much any video trail camera that I've ever tested. Okay? So that is a big plus for it. But having said that, let's go back to the data. The video file sizes on this are enormous compared to HD cameras. Okay, a normal HD camera, all the other trail cams that I've tested, their average video file size for HD at 30 frames per second or 1080p at 30 frames per second is going to be around 2 megabytes. I've seen them from 1.4 megabytes to 2.5 megabytes, but the average is around 2 megabytes per second. Okay, this one here at 1080p was 7.2 megabytes. That's more than 3 times the size. Now, so far I've only shown you daytime video, so let's go to nighttime video. And this is where the camera just did not perform up to standard. Okay, so here's some nighttime video. All right, guys, so you see there that the nighttime video, when the animals were close, it was really good, but the actual reach of the infrared lights on the camera when it's shooting video at night was only about 20 feet. The feeder in the background is exactly 30 feet from this camera, and animals that were underneath it were almost invisible. You know what I mean? They weren't invisible, but you couldn't see them very well. They weren't clear, and you could kind of tell, well, that's a rabbit because it's small, or that's a deer because it's tall, but you couldn't really tell much else about them. So the effective range of the infrared lights, where you're going to get good quality video that you can tell something about the animal at night, is about 20 feet. Even at 25 feet, you're starting to lose a lot of definition. But within 20 feet, it was really good. So I would recommend that you put this camera really close to whatever you want to see. Not 30 feet away, put it 20 feet away, and then you're probably going to get some good nighttime video. That was disappointing. And again, just like with the images, the late afternoon, extreme low light video was pretty much crap because of the same reason I explained for the images, but I will give you a sample of it here. Okay, so Zimoce, you need to adjust the firmware on this to turn those infrared lights on just a little bit earlier. I know the camera can do well in that condition because 20 minutes after that, those infrared lights will turn on, and this is what the video looks like at that point in time. See, so a lot better. So if they just tweaked it just a little bit where they turned those on a little earlier, we wouldn't get that really grainy, extreme low light video. But that's all that needs. It's not a problem with the camera itself. It's just when the infrared lights turn on. All right. Well, okay, guys, let's talk about the pros on this. So first, let's talk about detection. The detection was exceptional. And I'll tell you why. Even though in 21 days I got 1,364 images, almost none of those images were of nothing. But this thing is hypersensitive, okay, guys? I recommend you start out on the medium setting, not the high setting. This thing caught every little stinking bird that flew in front of it. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of pictures of little birds flying in front of this thing, and it catches them in the air. Okay, there was this one particular bird, I think this nesting above it, and so I'll just throw some images here. It kept flying right above the camera, and I caught countless images of him flying up there, so I think he was setting it off a lot. Here's a picture of a cardinal, little bitty red cardinal way out there. It caught it. So every little thing that moved, a mouse, a rabbit, a bird, it caught. All right, so it was just hypersensitive, but in that, it did not take a whole lot of false positives, even though it was very, very stormy. So here's a video of a rabbit in the middle of a windstorm, and you would think that the windstorm and the trees waving in the background would be the thing that set it off, but it wasn't. It was the rabbit. And so the detection on this was exceptional. Now, there were some false positives. I mean, we've been like I've had like 8 inches of rain in the last month. We've had horrible thunderstorms and windstorms. And yes, there were some false positives because, as you can see, those trees were just like whipping around, and eventually it's going to set it off. But in spite of all that distraction, even with all that going on, it still didn't miss a bird flying, so it was very, very good. So probably one of the best detection ratios that I've seen. Efficiency. The battery efficiency was great, considering how many files it took at the high quality and how much data it wrote, 25 gigabytes. In that time, and it didn't use any more battery than that. I haven't really had a camera that was as efficient as this camera. This is probably the most efficient camera that I have tested so far. So that's really good. You put it at a lower setting and take less pictures. This thing lasts a year in the field. If I'm testing it heavily, every 10 minutes and all that stuff. But if you set it to a lower setting, it'd probably get a good year out of this and 30,000 pictures. Okay, so that's really good. The angle of the lens on this is super wide. Probably the widest angle trail camera that I've ever tested. This one right here. I don't know what it is, but it's like 180, 170 degrees. I've not had a trail camera with this wide of angle of lens. It might be because of the dual lens, but here's the thing. It caught everything. Even if something over on the very far edge, it was moving, like I'll throw some pictures of animals on the extreme edges, it picked them up. So it's really good at detection, and it's got a really wide angle, and that's really good for wildlife viewing. So wide angle lens, that's a good quality, good positive. Okay, the shutter speeds. Shutter speeds were amazing. Like you already saw the birds caught in midair, mid-flight. I caught hundreds of pictures in mid-flight, birds in mid-flight, and they were clear. So the shutter speed, daytime, very fast, very good. Okay, now let's talk about a few cons. Okay, so as I've already pointed out, the nighttime video range is pretty short, about 20. Okay, and then I've already talked about the poor late afternoon, extreme low light conditions. Those images did not turn out good, but like I said, that could be corrected in the firmware. Okay. Why in the world, and I do not understand this, but most trail cameras record video in the AVI format, which is an ancient video file holder, and it just doesn't contain a lot of data. It doesn't have all the modern stuff, and this camera really deserved to have videos in the MP4 format that are compatible with smartphones and stuff, because most smartphones and a lot of video programs are not even supporting AVI anymore. And you may have some trouble. If you have trouble playing the AVI video files out of this, download the VLC player, and that will help you because there's a lot of problems with modern players, especially smartphones, playing the AVI files. So it deserved MP4, and I hope that AVI goes away. All right. The SD card slot on the bottom, as I've already talked about, this is just one of my pet peeves, and I know a lot of other people that use these cards. They hate these little cards down here, because if you've got this on a tree or something in the field, and you try to take that out, and oh, there it goes, it pops out, and it's somewhere in 2 feet of grass, and you've lost your SD card, and then you just want to like choke somebody, all right? And my SD card flew all the way over there. But that has happened to me in the field, guys, and I know there's a lot of you that are screaming at the screen right now saying, yes, 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 I know. Okay, so manufacturers of all trail cams everywhere, I am now putting you on alert. Do not put a micro SD card in the bottom of the stinking camera, all right? Put it over here on the side, and better yet, get rid of the stupid micro and put a full-size SD card in the side or on the top. Make it easy for us to get it in and out, and we will love you for it. Okay, guys? So that's about it. That's all I've got to say about this camera. I really like it. It did a really good job. You know, obviously there's some things that it could do better. But as far as the overall quality, I am very impressed with the camera, and I will put it out in the field. And I think this will be my go-to camera for a lot of things. I'll just have to put it closer to what I want to see. And hopefully the manufacturer will send a firmware update to kind of fix that extreme low light issue. But other than that, it's ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have, please like, subscribe, and comment. I will say a quick note here. This is the second to the last trail camera review that I will be doing for the Jungle Explorer channel. Unfortunately, they just have not been performing well, and they're a lot of work. So I have made the decision to stop doing them. So I hope you enjoyed this one and it's been good for you. If you still want to see trail camera reviews that performed by me, I have a new channel called Nothing But Gadgets. It's dedicated to nothing but electronic gadgets and of all sorts. And that is where the trail camera reviews will be moving to. So I will put a link to that in the description of this video, including a product link to this camera right here. Until next time, this is the Jungle Explorer signing out.